Namaste, shalom, salam, everybody, satnam. I didn't actually think that I was going to be talking about this, but the amount of messages I've been getting and the fact that I've been receiving death threats on social media and on TikTok particularly, where also somebody was talking about that I should be raped. And this has all come from the fact that I went live on TikTok and I was talking about spirituality, and then somebody asked if I was Saira Hayati's sister. People kept insisting, and eventually I said yes. And somebody said that they had read my book, and somebody else said, why don't you talk to her? So eventually I spoke about the reason why I didn't talk to her. I really didn't want to come on here and do this, but because of all of this, I have to. And the reason why I'm doing this is that because of everything that's happened on social media, so many people are coming forward. People who Saira Hayati has financially hurt, and other people who are coming forward who have said, Sophia, you are so brave to speak about your story. Other people have said, this is happening to me. Keep speaking your truth. And ultimately, this is about truth. We create a digital footprint when we are on social media. And in this day and age, we tend to believe everything. People can say whatever they want. And because of the conviction and the way people speak, we tend to believe that. And there are a lot of things that Saira Hayati has said on her videos which are not true. And I'm not going to go into all the things that she said just to gain trust within her followers, to spend money on her advice. And again, on TikTok, people have come forward about the misadvice that she has given them as a mortgage advisor. Now, I'm not going to go into those facts about her CV as she presents herself not being accurate. That I don't want to go into. But this book was written quite some time ago. I believe it was published in 2008. We didn't have the internet then. We didn't have things like TikTok, so it was published in 2008. And it was a book, if you look at the title, and it says, I dared to live my life the way I wanted, so my parents set out to have me killed. A true story. Because of this book, I helped a lot of people in the past. And as I said, social media wasn't social media was just beginning. So we didn't have things like TikTok. And in fact, the book wasn't even available as a digital copy, because then these things were not part of, normal publishing. And I was approached to write this book by a publishing company and a ghostwriter. And I remember the process of writing the book was very, very tough, because I had to revisit the emotions, and here I am doing it again, which is something that I have to do for the purpose of what's happening. People said that Saira had gone online and said that I'm making things up and discrediting her, because in the beginning of this book, I wrote a dedication to her. Now, I hadn't read the dedication or the book in a long time, and it sits on my shelf, but I don't read it because it makes me sad and reminds me of a time in my life that I really don't want to remember. However, I've learned from it and I've grown from it. And so on TikTok Live, I read what I'd written in the beginning. And I cried because I remembered how much I loved Saira because of the fact that she was the one who seemingly protected me from being killed by a hitman. She, I thought, was protecting me. This book was published by a big publisher who has published the rights of Tom Hanks and other huge, huge celebrities. So they've done all their legal checks. So when Saira accuses me and says that I'm lying and that she doesn't remember what happened, and in fact, when she did the 1-hour video on me, saying that she said a lot of things, including insinuating that I was schizophrenic because I've left Islam, because I've been on a spiritual path for 9 years. I became a spiritual nun. And she explained that to my mother, didn't accept that I'd left Islam. And she'd explained that to my mother, saying that, oh, it's because Sophia's mentally unwell. And interestingly enough, she carried on that lie in her video. And I did dedicate I dedicated this book to a number of people. I dedicated it to Daphne, who was my guardian angel, and is my guardian angel, who was this old lady that when I moved to London, she had no family, I had no family. Her family had died, mine was still alive. And Daphne was dying of cancer and had no family, and I became her legal guardian. I took her to her appointments. I stopped her from dying or spending her last days in hospital. So I had to go to all these meetings, and Daphne and I were just best friends. We were each other's family. And so I dedicated it to her, my best friend, other people that were important in my life that have fallen away because maybe death. And to Saira, I said to Saira, my sister, for being a good friend. You have always been someone I could trust, despite the beliefs of many people in our culture. You have a beautiful family whom I adore, Hannah, Hamza, Haris and Hussein, happy children, confident and loving. Thank you for your special hugs and kisses. I want to thank all those people who gave me a hard time because you only made me stronger. It's very hard for me to read this. It is hard. Now, I've just earmarked a couple of pages here. So the book talks about how I was kidnapped from university by my mother. And when she kidnapped me, they kidnapped me because they saw me wearing a short skirt. And they turned up at my place where I was renting, near my university campus, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was coming in from going to a party with my friends in a club, and I was wearing a short skirt. I don't like talking about this, but I have to, because as I'm healed from the trauma, but when I recall it, I feel sad that I went through that. My life is so apart from everything that happened here. And I have grown so much. I have healed. I now heal others. The trauma and the suffering caused by my family have made me into an incredible, strong person. And everything I've achieved in my life has been without them, because I never had the support of a family. So they had taken me, they literally forced to open my door at university and threw me in the back of a car and threw me into the cellar, and there I was to remain until I hatched a plan to escape. I'm going to read you this part, which is on page 96 Majid, who's my brother, Majid walked slowly into the kitchen. He was holding a carving knife. I started to tremble in fear. "What's the knife for?" I said, bursting into tears. "Are you going to kill me?" "Please don't harm me. I'll do whatever you say. Please, Mum, don't use the knife." I cried out in terror as Mum took her hand off my shoulder, put the knife back in the drawer. "Majid, and go to bed," she said calmly. "It's finished now." Sophia is back to where she belongs and will stay downstairs in the cellar. Everything's going to be fine. And it says, "I learned from Tyra, my sister, that my mother's intention had been to kill me if I'd put up a fight and disobeyed her. Though I doubt if she could have gone through with it." Now imagine how that feels when you're at university. You have no family around you. I'm working 4 jobs to see myself through university because I had no help. Unlike Saira, who had financial help from my mother to set up her business. In fact, what my mother told me is that she'd sold my mum's house in the promise that it would create financial wealth for my mother, but she'd use that money to buy other properties and then rented a property to my mother. And I know that because my mother told me that when I went on holiday. But let's go back to this. First of all, my brother had a knife. And my other sister said that it would have been used if I put up a fight. I didn't think that I had any choice but to comply with their wishes. Just for a minute, imagine how that feels to be in such fear. So young. I was 19. I hadn't had sex. I hadn't had a boyfriend because I was told that that boys only want to use you for one thing. I was told that it would make you a slut. I was called a slut from the age of 10 and a prostitute by my own family because one day I discovered red lipstick in my mum's bag and wore it. And I was immediately slapped and told that I was a prostitute. But forget that. I can handle all of that. I can handle all of that. I handled this. Now, eventually, I just earmarked a few things. Eventually, what had happened, I have to pause because I need to find this. Sorry, I had to push pause. So it says here, I woke up early the next morning. This is page 105, and sleepily checked my mobile phone. I always kept it on silent under my pillow, and I was glad to have it with me. Someone had sent me a text message. "Mum is sending someone to kill you. She's hired a hitman. He'll find you. You need to disappear for a bit. Saira." Cross, cross, or kiss, kiss. I was horrified. Saira's words seemed so extreme that I could hardly believe this was happening. But the more I thought about it, the more I came to believe that an honor killing was a distinct possibility. It would have become the final option for my parents. They wanted their ordeal to be over, and this was the solution. I began to shake with fear, then jumped out of bed and flew into action. I'd faced death a few months ago in the kitchen, and I knew full well that it was once again close. I didn't even think about going to the police at that point, but I needed to tell someone. So I told the person whose house I'd taken refuge in. I need to tell you something, I said. You know, I've had a lot of trouble with my family. The trouble now is that my mother wants to kill me, and it sounds far-fetched, but it's true. I'm telling you because I don't want to put your life in jeopardy, but I need your help. I think I should leave now, but you mustn't tell anyone. You know where I am, or that I was here. I remember when this was happening, and I remember that, listen, anyone who's been through any sort of threat of their life will, I mean, I really hope that no one ever has, and no one ever has to go through this, but it happens. And after that message, I remember being in this flat because I couldn't stay at my own place. And distinctly, I remember every car door that slammed outside, every noise. I jumped. Is it them? Is it them? Is it them? I couldn't even look outside of the curtain. And I was saying to my friend, Omar, look outside, look outside. Tell me, what do you see? It's tiring. It was tiring. I was tired, but I couldn't be tired. I had to be on the ball. I had to be ready. My adrenaline was constantly high. I had to be ready to protect myself again. I mean, in the space of that ordeal, I was kidnapped at university at knife point. At home, my brother had a knife. And then I had this. There were 3 times that my life, or the reinforcement of the fact that I was to be killed. And the police got involved. And when I'd gone to the police, I showed them my sister's text message from Saira, and I felt worried that the police would laugh off my allegations. After all, saying that her mother wanted her dead was a shocking claim for a young girl to make. I was scared of sounding ridiculous. But as the police sat back and listened while taking copious notes, I came to believe that they understood and would help me. They said, we're not going to take any risks with this. So they took a formal statement, then gave me protection. And this was because of the text message that Saira sent me, is why they gave me protection. And once I'd given my statement, I was terrified. I'd finally told everything to someone outside the family. I could feel the honor that my parents had drummed into my head for so many years, trying to challenge, create fear, and weaken me again. The police took out an injunction against my mother and told her if I called them to say that she had come near me, they would arrest her. And I think this frightened her. They gave me a special number that I could ring if I felt like my life was in danger. I had to call my year tutor at university and my manager at Legal and General. They were always so great with me, even after I failed to show up at work. And you know what? Every evening and morning I'd walk to and from work or university and feel paranoid that someone was behind or watching me. I'd walk so fast that I'd often arrive feeling flustered and afraid, but I felt better when the police updated me with their plans. Time heals all wounds, as they say, and as the weeks went by, I started to find my feet again. I only chatted to my work colleagues at the time. So that's me walking to and from work. So the book is a testimony to the truth. And that's why I loved Saira. Because she was the only one who looked out for me. She was the only one who was my friend. She would call me regularly to see what I was up to, if I was okay. Roll on, 15 years later, my father dies. And my father and I hadn't been in contact because when I was at university, I wanted to speak to my father, and I made a phone call home. And my brother answered the phone, my younger brother, not the one with the knife. And I wanted to speak to Dad, and he said, Dad's not here, he's in jail. And I said, okay, what for? And he said that the house had been taped up and my father had been arrested for relations with a minor. I was sexually abused by my uncle when I was 10 years old. And I immediately judged my father. For my brother to tell me something like that the house was taped up and the bed sheets taken away, just blew my head. And so I made a decision not to speak to my father again. Well, that and the fact that he married somebody younger than I was. The beautiful thing about him remarrying somebody else was that he produced 2 children, one of which I'm very close to, who really is the sister I always wanted. Pure in heart. But, you know, she's better than me because she's clever. She's got her head screwed on. Because when my father died, I think she was 12 when my dad died, she had to take on a role of looking after the family. Not only that, she had to try and protect the family home. So that's when I met my mother again at my father's funeral. And Saira had come to me and said, we are not taking any of Dad's money or any of Dad's properties. It should be for his wife and his children because they have nothing. And I thought, how sweet is she? To only later find out that she took the property. I didn't and don't ever want anything from it, but she did it in such a sly way that she had to protect herself by saying this to everybody, but she took my father's property. I didn't know this then, but I know now. 6, 7 years later, I found out. So my mother became my friend again, and we went to the mosque for my dad's funeral, and my mother asked me to pray with her. Even though I wasn't a Muslim, I got on the prayer mat and prayed with her in the mosque because I respect. Even after all those years, I still loved my mother. Even after everything she did, I still loved her and hoped that she loved me and she was proud of me. The thing is, I always wanted to be a singer and an actor, and they always told me it was wrong, it was disgusting. And over the years, I became extremely successful. I've made so many movies and TV shows and become an inspiration for many, many people. I was one of the first young Asian women to ever go out in nightclubs, and parents would come up to me and say, we allow our children to go out because we've seen you on TV and we know that our children won't be, you know, put into compromising situations with men because of how you behave and how strong you are, which was wonderful. But my parents still, to this day, or family, tried to stop me from doing it. And it was hard because I had no support at all. And constantly I was fighting this fear that something was going to happen. And the guilt that they made me feel for wanting to do this. I remember my mother said, give up your music, give up being a singer, or give me up. And I said, I love you both. You can't make me give up. So, yeah. We became friends at the funeral. And as I said, I prayed with my mother. And I stayed at my little brother's house. And his house was a mess. Saira had sold him this house, which she'd put under her name. And it was a mess. I mean, there were children living in that property. The windows were letting in the cold. The kitchen was disgusting. The bathroom was disgusting. And I felt so bad for him that I gave him, in total, I've given him £36,000 to do up the property. And as a result of me funding double glazing, bathroom and a kitchen, which I gave to him as a gift, the property then went on the market and sold for £100,000 or £150,000 more, and he went off and bought another house. And this was because of the improvements that I had paid for. I didn't ask for anything back because I gave it to him as a gift, because when I was there, I thought, look at me, I live in such a beautiful property on my own. His windows are letting in so much cold that the children are asleep, freezing cold. The toilet doesn't work properly. The kitchen it was not, in my opinion, a livable place. So that's when I started to become friends with my mum, and eventually I took her on holiday. She'd never traveled business class before. Saira had taken her on numerous trips, but I chose to take my mum on business class, and we went to Egypt. And it was really difficult because I remember my mum, just the behavior was, obviously we'd never spent that much time together for 20 odd years. Sorry, I'm still a bit sniffly from talking about the other stuff. Anyway, so we went to Egypt, and my mother I hired like private tour guides, and my mother kept telling them, oh, my daughter told everybody I hired a hitman. She wrote a book about it. The police came to me. And I'm like, why is she saying this when it's true? She also offloaded to me about how Saira had sold her house, took the money, and then put her in a property that was rented out. She had to pay rent on it. So my mum offloaded so many stuff, but she also said, don't tell her. She said, look, really, please don't tell her. But what happened when I was in front of Saira, I was so upset that she had done all of this that I had to tell her. So I guess I betrayed my mum's trust because I didn't want my mum to be in that situation. After that, I'd spoken to a few of my siblings, and I said, actually all of them, and I said, Mum kept saying that she didn't send a hitman on this trip. And then it was just my older sister first. And she said, what hitman? I said, what do you mean, what hitman? It's in my book. Well, none of us read your book. We were not allowed to. How do you not know this? Well, Mum would never have done that. I said, but I got a text message from Saira. Well, you didn't get it from Mum. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Now, remember, I wrote this book. I did numerous interviews with the BBC, which I've also uploaded. And I asked all of the siblings, and they said, no, Mum didn't do that. Maybe Saira had a reason for sending you that message. All of a sudden, I understood that something was wrong. Why? Why would Saira do this? Why would she make up something and then try and be my friend for 15 years? I also forgot to mention that in the middle of all this, when she was my friend, she would come to me, and she came to my business and was asking me all these questions about my business, and I thought it was because she was my friend. And later on, my mother told me that actually she was spying on my business so that she could set up a copycat business for herself and my other sister. Now, if she'd have asked me for the help, I would have actually said, you know what, I'll help fund this. So she set up a clinic with somebody else as a partner, and then did the same for my other sister. Set up a business after my sister told her everything to do for my business. So again, I would have helped. But the fact that she had spied on my business was, I mean, these are the words of my mother. But I would have helped them. But that's what her personality is. So obviously all my siblings made it quite clear to me that that message was not sent by my mother. So I confronted her. She said it wasn't true. And I said, well, why are they all saying this? She said, they're probably making it up. And she said, who remembers what happened all those years ago anyway? I said, I do, the victim does. See, this is the thing with people who gaslight. The way they try and manipulate your mind is to make you question your own truth. And I started to question it. Maybe I've got it wrong, but why would I have written about it? Why was it on the news? Why did the police give me protection? Because she's very, very convincing. Eventually, my mum went into hospital and had a heart operation because she was very unwell. And there was a lot of drama that happened there, which I won't go into unless I have to. And I'd agreed to pay for the whole operation. 5 of her children were not coming up with the money, and I felt bad. And because of the consultation that I'd gotten with a specialist for her, she ended up having the operation, thank goodness, on the NHS in the end. And that's another story. So eventually my mom was let home after her operation. My older sister had looked after her very well. And I went to see her. I'm a qualified phlebotomist, and she needed hydration, so I went to deliver hydration through an IV. And Saira turned up. Now, I had to stay with my mother because I was administering the IV. And my mother just said, why don't you two make friends? And I said, well, all she needs to do is to tell the truth. In front of you, to tell the truth. Because, Mum, you told me what you did in Egypt. She needs to tell the truth. And she said, well, I told you before, your version of the story is different to mine. So we both remember it differently. So maybe we just respect that in each other. Which again is gaslighting. I didn't actually know what gaslighting was and how damaging it was. Really, it was TikTok that brought it to my notice. And I'm like, my gosh, this is exactly what she's doing. And I asked her again, just tell the truth in front of Mother. We can forget this and move on. And she said, let's just agree to the differences and just become friends. And I said, there's no differences. There's the truth. My life was affected for 15 years. I didn't speak to my mother because of you. And now she's sick. And I couldn't enjoy my mother when she was healthy. I wanted to be able to enjoy my mother when she was healthy. I wanted to be able to take her on trips. I wanted to do things with my mother that other people did. And you prevented me from doing this with my own mother. And at that point, I started to cry. And she said, oh, give me a hug, don't cry. I said, please don't touch me, you caused this. I said, I'm not hurting anymore, but I'm crying because you separated me from my mother for 15 years. Every Mother's Day, when people were celebrating Mother's Day and I go into the shops and there's Mother's Day cards and everybody are getting messages, I couldn't send one to my mother. I was on this TV show, Big Boss, in India, watched by over 1 billion people. And I remember everybody was receiving voice messages. They played it on a loudspeaker because we were living in this house. It's like Big Brother for celebrities. They didn't show this on camera because it was too traumatic. Everybody was receiving messages from their family saying, I love you, I miss you, I'm proud of you. And I knew I wasn't going to get that message. And I had to leave the room where we all were. I went to the bathroom and I broke down. I had a major breakdown. It was so bad that they couldn't show it on camera. And again, I'm feeling emotional, I'm healed from it, but just to remember all that I'd gone through, my life, she'd affected it on so many different levels. And yes, in Big Boss, they gave me and prescribed me something for anxiety. I had overcome my anxiety many, many years ago. I had lots of CBT, counseling, and I'd overcome it all. But that brought it all back because I longed for a message like that. And I knew I wasn't going to get it. And for all of you who don't have support from your parents, and I know deep down that you want that because that's what we've been taught. You must make your parents proud. And as children, when you've got your mother and father that you look up to for support, for love, and when it's not being given to you, there's a part of you that feels like you've done something wrong. There's a part of you that feels like I'm unlovable, a failure, guilty, shame. And what I want to say to all of you is that the only person you ever need to ask approval from is yourself. Because God made every single one of us. None of us exists without God's breath. None of us do. Every single one of us, regardless of who your family is, regardless of where you are born, how you are born, are children of divine creator. Every single one of you. And that's powerful. That's powerful. And any time you lose hope, or you think you're losing hope, because trust me, when you think you're losing hope, hope never goes. Even though in your mind you think that's it. Hope never goes. Because you are alive for one reason only. Because God wanted you here, and because that breath of God exists within you. So don't ever let anybody think that you need their approval. Because you are important, just because you are you. Because even though your parents made you, God made the ultimate decision to have you here, trust me. I know that. Divine creator, whether you call there's only one divine creator, Waheguru Ji. Jesus, Mary, whatever you choose to call divine creator. Because there is only one creator, but that one creator created everything. Nothing on this planet exists without that one breath, that one creator, and everything was created from that one. So, I remember there with my mom administering her this IV. I asked Saira again and she said, listen, the only person who is going to judge me is God on Judgment Day. And I said, well, what if God is working through me right now? What if there isn't going to be a big man or a big light standing at the end of a mountain saying, okay, you go to fire? What if it's happening right now, that God has chosen to sit inside me and give you the opportunity to tell you the truth? God can go into anybody's body and say and speak. So I say to you, if anybody ever asks you to tell the truth, tell the truth. Because you never know. If God has decided to look through somebody and that your judgment day is there in front of you, the truth is always important. And I gave her 3 opportunities and she chose not to do it. She made a 1-hour video on social media, which got a lot of views. It has now been taken down, but myself and other people have copies. And on her video, there were 2 things that she said which are quite dangerous. One of the things is she said that I'd gone to the Amazon to drink ayahuasca, which is true. And she insinuated that I was schizophrenic because of it. Now, she didn't use my name directly because she's clever, but she said, if you Google it, people who drink this can become schizophrenic. And some people have lost their mind. Again, gaslighting. But secondly, she'd already said this to my mother. When I told you, when I'd left Islam, she'd already said to my mother, she's not well mentally, which is why she's doing this. So again, she's trying to reaffirm this idea to everyone around her and to me. And this is all to cover up her lie. She also told people on this video that I was defaming Islam, which is very, very dangerous to say because of the reaction from Muslims that I've had. I've had death threats and threats of rape because of her saying that I defamed Islam. And I have screenshots of them. And if I take this to the police, they will have serious consequences to anybody who wrote those and anybody who insinuated this type of crime. On this 1-hour video she made, she also said that if these text messages were sent by her, because she said she didn't send them. She also said she hadn't read this book. She said that the first she read of it was when she Googled it recently and found an online portal where she downloaded it and read it. And she said on her 1-hour video, if I was telling the truth, I would call the police station where the report was made all those years ago and request the report and that they would have one. I think she called it, I can't remember what she called it. And at that point I thought, you know what, good idea. But I think she was relying on the fact that this was over 20 years ago that they wouldn't have the records. So I called Sussex Police Station for the records. They've now told me how to get the records and that they have not been destroyed. But the evidence is this book. The evidence is all the newspaper articles that came out saying that Saira had sent the text message. The evidence is her holding this book on a BBC interview, which I put on my TikTok, and I think I've put it on my YouTube in another video. So she's lied and being caught in the lie. Because eventually liars will get caught. Let them talk enough, they'll eventually get caught. But this isn't just a lie to say something small. This is a huge lie that affected my life. This is a lie. See, now I don't even know if she sent a hitman. Was it her? Or did she just send the message to put fear inside me? Whichever it was cruel because of the ordeal I went through, because of the fear that I suffered, because of me not speaking to my mother for 15 years, because of my whole life and every decision being impacted by that, which I have healed from. I have forgiven her. I have forgiven her. Now, forgiveness doesn't mean that you go back into that relationship, because she has not changed. Because she is doing the same thing. Because she's still lying about me, about herself, to make money, to make herself look like she's a saint. And she succeeded with a lot of people. And as I said, the truth is the most important thing. Now, when she said on her video that I should get in contact with the authorities to get my records, obviously they've said the records are still there. And secondly, this prompted a response by the police, who then turned up at my door unexpectedly. They did take her name, her social media name, because it's not her real name. And they did ask me if I wanted to file a report, which I haven't. But do I need to tell the police that actually she'd sent the death threat and it wasn't my mother? The thing is that because of what she said, I'd called the police and did exactly what she did. And what happened in the end was that it triggered something in the system. Now, unfortunately, if I do receive any more threats from her fans for a fatwa, or to be killed, or to be raped, I do have the evidence, which I will be making a decision whether or not I'm taking that to the police. But that's something else. But right now, as I said, this video was made to address the truth. Why is the truth important now? Because for some reason, the universe brought it up on my social media. This didn't start with me talking about it. It's interesting how it started with people who follow her. So the universe wants the truth to come out. We create a digital footprint. You know, in 200-300 years' time, when we're not here in this particular body, I wonder if the people in the future are going to be looking back at these YouTube videos and whether they will see them as truth. There's a lot of things that have happened in this world. The stories, our history, is it all true? The Egyptian gods are supposed to be a myth. The Greek gods are supposed to be a myth. And yet there are incredible pyramids around the world and incredible temples, Hindu temples around the world. There are incredible structures around the world, dating back to the Sumerians, who had incredible knowledge and wisdom. But I wonder in the future, when they look back at all of this, what are they going to think? What do you want to leave? What footprint do you want to leave digitally? And we live in an age where anybody can say anything on social media. And, you know, as I said, A lot of people are getting social media fame. My fame came from my skill as an actor, as a singer, as a TV presenter. And I've been, I say blessed because I worked hard. I worked hard for my blessings. I've been in BAFTA nominated movies and worked with some of my heroes. And this was with no help from family, no financial help from anyone. Working 4 jobs. I didn't, you know, if I'd have had children like Saira did, she left her children with my mum. My mum brought up those children so she could go on her pursuit for financial gain. And I, as I said, don't have children and never had any support from my family. It must be wonderful to have children and then to be able to leave them with a member of your family so that you can pursue your career and to have financial help from them. Everything I've achieved has been without their help. I did have some help from when I finally got married, my husband did support me on some levels. But I was already famous by the time I'd met him. And I was already on the road and I was already making movies. But, you know, that's not the point of all of this. The point is that this video had to be made because the truth is the most important thing. I wasn't going to do it, and this morning when I woke up, it was in my head, Sophia, the truth has to come out. And I've had so many messages from people who have been affected by her. And this isn't just, this is about that. This is about your truth. So many people are afraid to speak up in the truth, especially if you come from a culture that is very, very strict and imposes on you and uses, some people use that religion, even though it's not what the religion is about, to cause fear. But to have that come from your siblings is something else. And there are people watching this right now who are in situations like I've been in. It still happens today. I've had messages from numerous people saying this. I've had messages from people saying, kiss and make up, become friends. Why? Why would I be friends with something that hurt over 15 years of my life? Life is really precious, and I'm so blessed to make it to this age. I'm so blessed. And when I left that family completely and fully, which was only a few years ago, but 15 years I was separated from my mother because of her actions. And then I made a decision. I made a decision to leave this time, to not have anything to do with them when I found out the truth. And in fact, I remember my niece, Saira's daughter, said, "We accepted you back again. You should be happy that we accepted you back again." And I said, whoa, you accepted me? It's me who needs to accept you. I'm not seeking your acceptance anymore. Yes, I did a long time ago when you kicked me out, when I was kidnapped. And then I tried to come back home, and every time I knocked on that door, it was like, no. Left on the streets to fend for myself on my own. Yes, there was a time that I was seeking the acceptance of my family. No more. You don't need anybody's acceptance or validation except for your own. Because not everybody is lucky to be born into families that support them with love, support their dreams. And as a child, no child should have to go through what I went through. I was sexually abused by my uncle, and when I went to my mother, she said, "You shouldn't have accepted gifts from him," at 10 years old. And then the sister who became my confidant was actually using me and lying. No one should have to go through that, but if you have, and if you're going through other stuff with your family, don't ever think you need their acceptance. Because the thing is, we want their acceptance because we love them. And what happens is we fall into patterns because we kind of want that approval from our friends and our partners in the future because we didn't get that love and that nurture from our family. And imagine when you don't get it from your mother and your father, and one sister is giving you that love and that approval, and then you find out that it's a lie. Nobody needs approval from anyone in their family. Your relationship is with yourself. Your approval comes from here. And my God and my relationship with God is personal. And I don't like to call it any religion, because I believe in oneness and truth of all and everything. And if that offends you, then I'm not sorry. But I've faced so much struggle, and you know what? It's made me stronger. I am a strong person. I'm very strong. But I'm also compassionate. And I also feel. Never let anybody stop you from feeling. Never let anybody cut off your heart, because this is your connection to God. Many have tried, but my heart is strong, very strong, and it roars like the lion that I have on my chest. So any of you who have had any sort of issues with your family, and any of you who are going through anything like I've gone through, look at me. I've achieved so much in my life. So much, more than I ever dreamt of. All of my dreams have come true. I've sung at the Royal Albert Hall with a song I wrote myself. I've been in BAFTA-nominated movies with lead roles. I've been a Bollywood actress. I've won. I wrote my own film a few years ago during lockdown and won 4 awards for my own movie as an independent artist. And I'm still achieving, and I'm still going on. So please remember, there's always hope. Never let that hope go. Sat Nam, everyone.